I remember the first time I got to fly first class. The upgrade was unexpected, and so was the feeling. I felt liberated, like Andy Dufresne at the end of Shawshank Redemption. Arms spread wide, I was freed from my sentence, my prison cell with narrow armrests. Up to that point, I had only seen first class in passing. And by passing, I mean that slow, humiliating chain gang walk through first class back to coach. You always hope that, like the flight itself, the trip to your seat will be nonstop. It never is. There's always that one gang member who can't find a spot for a sledgehammer in the overhead compartment, brings the whole line to a halt. And then you're just standing there. You might as well be locked in the pillory above town square. You look up from your shackled feet, make eye contact with the woman in seat B2. She's obviously someone important. Her sunglasses are too big and her dog is too small. Telltale signs of socioeconomic superiority. And just as you're about to attempt an ill-advised icebreaker, the sledgehammer slides into place, the chain pulls tight, and the shuffling continues. But that was the past. Snatched from obscurity, I was now elevated to a place of prominence, like Prince Westling or King Ralph. The committee had convened and the decision was made. I was a free man. But was I really ready for life on the outside? For starters, I didn't look the part. No oversized sunglasses, no undersized pets, just a hoodie and my Santa Cruz trucker hat. The cargo pants probably didn't help. Second, and more importantly, I didn't feel the part. The airlines, they avoid the term second class, but on any given plane, there are really only two sections, and one of them is clearly labeled first. Instead, they try to sugarcoat it by calling it something high-end like coach. Flying Gucci didn't pass the focus group, but we know a knockoff when we see it. My thoughts, they start to betray me. Who am I kidding? I'm second class on a good day. Most of the time, I'd barely qualify for the cargo hold. I don't belong up in first class. I belong back in Gucci. Before I knew it, I began scheming on how I might break parole just to get sent back. Maybe a derogatory remark about the pilot's mother, or something disparaging about handbag dogs. As Red from Shawshank put it, all I want is to be back where things make sense, where I don't have to be afraid all the time. And that place for me was coach. Back there, I knew the routine, the expectation, the flow. I mean, do you even need permission to use the bathroom in first class like you do in coach? Who knows? Not that I'd be able to go without say-so anyway. But before I could act, a voice sounded over the PA system. Now boarding first class on flight 232, traveling nonstop to Las Vegas. The flight number and my ticket, they matched. I was almost disappointed. I looked at my ticket again and thought just for a moment, maybe it won't be so bad. I mean, the number does match, names on it and everything. I thought it over a bit more as I watched a few first-class regulars enter the jet bridge. I took a deep breath and stood, shoulders back a little. I walked toward the gate. My confidence grew with each step. Of course, the jury was still out on whether I need verbal permission to avoid a case of mile-high bladder paralysis, but things were looking up. As I approached the customer service agent, I felt a little silly, but no longer because of my preconceived inadequacy. I felt silly because I let such a thought grow in the first place. With my confidence now all but restored, I handed the woman my boarding pass. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said politely with a matching smile. "I said we're boarding first class." "What?" "I said we're boarding first class. We'll be seating coach momentarily." She barely even looked at my ticket. She just stood there like I tried to board with a Snickers wrapper. I double-checked my boarding pass just to make sure. She was so confident in her response, maybe she knew something I didn't. After careful inspection, though, I determined it wasn't a Snickers wrapper. "Yeah, I have a first-class ticket, names on it and everything." The agent's demeanor quickly changed. It went from "please get lost" to "don't tell my boss" in a matter of seconds. "Oh, I do apologize. Yes, of course," she said. "Let me scan that for you. Again, I'm so sorry for the mistake." I assured her everything was fine. My bladder, on the other hand, it would take more convincing. Brooklyn philosopher Jay-Z once said, "Identity is a prison you can never escape." If identity is the fact of being who or what a person or thing is, then I suppose he's right. There's no escape, not even with the help of Rita Hayworth and a rock hammer. But is it fair to compare identity with a prison sentence? It can be. The American Psychological Association defines identity as an individual sense of self defined by A, a set of physical, psychological, and interpersonal characteristics that is not wholly shared by any other person, and B, a range of affiliations such as ethnicity and social roles. Identity involves a sense of continuity or the feeling that one is the same person today that one was yesterday or last year, despite physical or other changes. Such a sense is derived from one's body sensations, one's body image, and the feeling that one's memories, goals, values, expectations, and the beliefs belong to the self, also called personal identity. Which is fine except for that sense of self part. There at the beginning? Because sense of self, also according to the APA, is an individual's feeling of identity, uniqueness, and self-direction. So how we feel is the measure by which we determine who we are? This doesn't seem wise, particularly because feelings aren't facts. Psychotherapist, author, and internationally syndicated columnist Dr. Barton Goldsmith writes, "Feelings aren't facts." See, not making this stuff up. Goldsmith goes on to say, "There's no end to the amount of feeling, both positive and negative, that flows through our lives on a daily basis. The trick is to learn how to differentiate between feelings that are born out of our imagination and those that are real and verifiable. And so it is with identity. We must discern between fact and fiction. If there's no end to the amount of feeling that flows through our lives on a daily basis, then our identity needs grounding, especially given our propensity to give and receive labels." Pure Matter CEO and best-selling author Brian Kramer writes, "We label others all the time. It helps us to compartmentalize situations and behaviors. However," Kramer adds, "labels end up conveying something absolute. That's difficult to navigate away from once it's decided. So let's be sure that when we come to such labels, particularly those spoken over us, we consider the source. Something we find in using the Socratic method." The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines Socratic method as a series of questionings, the object of which is to elicit a clear and consistent expression of something supposed to be implicitly known. I like to focus on one particular Socratic question. That is, did someone pass this thought or belief to me? And if so, are they a reliable source? Because questioning the source is not only a useful therapeutic tool, but it's arguably the oldest. In Genesis 3:11, after the fruit but before the finger pointing, God asked Adam, "Who told you that you were naked?" A question to which Adam did not have an answer. Now, I don't think God asked the question because he didn't know the answer. I think he asked because he wanted Adam to consider the source. It's like God was saying, "You were doing fine earlier. What happened between then and now? And who told you this? Who told you that you have something to hide?" As if trying to remind Adam of truth in the midst of lies by asking, "Who are you?" About 4,000 years later, John the Baptist was asked the same "who" question. But unlike Adam, John had a response. He not only knew who he was, as the prophet Isaiah said, the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, but he also knew who he wasn't. He wasn't Christ, he wasn't Elijah the prophet. And knowing makes all the difference. Because whereas the devil's "who are you" is a subtle accusation rooted in lies, God's "who are you" is a gentle reminder rooted in truth. It's the difference between who do you think you are and who do you know you are. In a world full of hurtful words, mixed messages, and lies, I believe God continues to lovingly ask us similar questions today. Questions like, who told you that you're worthless? Who told you that you won't amount to anything? Who told you that you'll never get married? Who told you that you're not good enough, smart enough, attractive enough? Who are you? And not because he doesn't know. Rather, he asks because he wants us to see the label for what it is, a lie. He's pointing out that the source of that message is no longer reliable. And he invites us to adopt an identity of truth, an identity of who we truly are. Because where there's truth, there is freedom. And freedom is a wonderful thing. But perhaps Red said it best after he himself embraced a new identity as a free man. "I find myself so excited, I can barely sit still or hold a thought in my head. I think it's the excitement only a free man can feel. A free man at the start of a long journey whose conclusion is uncertain. The same excitement and joy are ours for the taking. So the next time someone puts a label on you, consider the source. The next time someone says you're something you're not, separate fact from feeling. And the next time someone calls you coach, be sure to show them your first class ticket.